If you've ever felt lost starting your Madden rebuild, this video is for you. Today, we're going to go over my process for evaluating rosters in Madden 22. We're going to go over some high-level team building tips, as well as some small things you can do to turn your fixer-upper into a dynasty. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe for more videos. All right, so to demonstrate a rebuild, I have the Eagles in this offline league I just created. I downloaded an updated roster that includes rookies, free agents, and trades. We're gonna walk through the rebuild process, and I'll call out what I'm doing as I'm doing it, why I'm making each decision, and how I'm setting myself up for success before the season even starts. First things first, let's take a look at the roster. This is the most important part of the rebuild process because it's evaluating where the team is when you're joining and where you're going to go from here. All of our decisions are going to be based on our initial evaluation of the roster. Right now, I would consider Jalen Hurts, Devonta Smith, and Quez Watkins to be our only must-keep core pieces on the offensive side of the ball. And this is because they're young, talented, and have good speed. The offensive line looked pretty talented, but old and probably highly overpaid. I'm not going to look to build around any of these guys. On the defensive side, we're in an interesting spot. Our best two players are Fletcher Cox and Darius Slay, both high overalls, superstar, but they're really old, and then two more guys who are just really overpaid. We're not going to build around them. However, the Eagles have some interesting prospects on defense. Think about Nakobe Dean, Hassan Reddick, Kyron Johnson, and if you want to throw Kerry Vincent in there because he's kind of fast at safety, I'm not going to fight you on that one. So in Philly right now, our priority is overhauling this defense while making some slight adjustments to our offense in order to optimize how this team is going. In terms of positions and where we're going to target upgrades, in order, we're going to try to upgrade our secondary, our defensive line, our linebackers, then our offensive line, running back, and then tight end. So now that we know who's on the team and what direction we're going to try to go, let's take a look at our salaries and see which players are actually valuable to the team, who's getting overpaid, who is on a long-term deal, who's on a short-term deal. We're going to try to evaluate where we need to go based on how much we're paying and how long we're paying each player. If we sort by age, years remaining, and savings, we're going to get a really good idea of who we want to cut or trade based on their salary. Anyone over the age of 29 is not going to improve in Madden, so we're probably going to look to move on from them. Anyone in the last 1 or 2 years of their contract is probably not going to have that big of a cap penalty to cut them because cap penalty is determined by bonus, which is paid out earlier on in the contract. So we can probably cut them without too much of a penalty if we don't want them. And then the third thing is savings. How much money can we actually save by cutting a player? The highest on the Eagles is $3.42 million for James Bradbury, which really isn't that big of a penalty to save. So then we look at the top part of this screen. The 2021 cap is $213 million, and right now the Eagles do not have a cap penalty in 2021 or 2022, which is great. They also have $127 million currently being used for salaries and $86 million of cap space remaining. 213 minus 127 is 86. Now, $127 million is a fine number to spend on your team, and you can probably spend a lot more because you have the whole $213 million cap to use. However, the way the Eagles are currently using this money is really not effective. You have a 31-year-old, 90 overall offensive tackle currently being paid $17 to $13 million per year throughout his contract. You have Brandon Graham making almost 10 mil. Slay is making 22, 23 mil. So many of these guys who are just not going to be part of the team are making so much money right now. And it makes the Eagles so much harder to rebuild because you can't just move on from these guys without taking a huge cap hit and ruining your chances at success in signing free agents and trading for guys in the next 2 to 3 years. For example, if we try to cut Brandon Graham or trade him, we save $1 million on our cap space, which is good, but we accrue a $15 million cap hit, which is not good. And like Lane Johnson and Darius Slay, both these contracts are just inexplicable. Horrendous value at the Lane Johnson, paying him 10 mil to just regress and probably retire within 2 to 3 years. It's not worth it at all for you. And then Darius Slay, who's already 30, is going to start regressing, is making $22 million a year for the next 3 years. That is just not sustainable for your Madden franchise. The only thing I can do right now, because of the way the Eagles are set up, is cut guys that I don't view as rosterable. This is basically just making preseason cuts now. Like Jordan Davis and Kerry Vincent, like they're good players. I'll keep them around. But like Richard Rodgers, I can cut no penalty, and I'll get my roster number from like 63 down to the 53 I need for the roster anyway. And if you really want to nickel and dime in an offline rebuild, you can just trade some of these guys and get like 6th, 7th round picks. I don't find that all that valuable for one, this video, and two, in the long term, because it takes so long for that to actually like pay off value for you. So most of these guys, if they're not worth trading, just cut. So we freed up about like $2.5 million worth of cap and only accrued $40K in cap penalty for 2022. That's totally fine. We did what we could and got rid of a couple players. Now that we have a bit more cap room and an idea of where we want to go, let's take a look at making some moves before the season starts to put our team in the best position to be successful. I always start in free agency, and if you're in an online franchise, make sure you're the first one to this screen. In the base Madden rosters, there's so many good players in this group that you can just sign, plug and play, or have control of for the future if you want to re-sign them to after this 1-year deal. It's a huge advantage to be at first to this screen because you have your pick of the litter when it comes to these players. You know, I'm just looking through, there's a lot of high value players here, like Odell Beckham is a great guy to have. You think about Julio Jones, he's a superstar in the game, right? So a $7 million 1 year wide receiver is a superstar abilities. If I needed a wide receiver, I'd absolutely go grab Julio here. Even a guy like Jaquiski Tart, 91 speed safety, that's pretty rare. You can just go grab him for free. Kaepernick, if you need a quarterback, go grab him. He's elite in Madden. Since this is an offline draft, I'm going to hold here, and I'm going to go to trades now. So while we're not looking to trade anything too valuable, if there's a guy that we don't necessarily think is a long-term asset for us, we can trade them. We can also trade draft picks to get some guys that are actually going to be really high impact or who can plug holes for our team. All right, first trade we made, we get a faster running back who's younger for Boston Scott, and we pick up our 3rd round pick as well. Pretty easy. Just flip the 5th round pick for Jacob Harris, and we trade a different 3rd round pick, Avonte Maddox, and a 3rd for Odafe Owe, and we just trade our backup left guard for our new starting outside linebacker, and we swap Zach Pascal and a 7 for MVS. No matter if you're in an offline or online franchise, the way to win is to get speed. We know that corners are the easiest to upgrade, and we want to take advantage for that by taking some young and fast guys and trading for them right away. Just quickly sorting by speed on the cornerbacks, we see a ton of guys that are low overall that can become absolute beasts. Obviously, this user-generated class is a little cheesy, some 99 speed corners. Not realistic, but whatever. Getting 2 to 3 of these guys in this list is going to massively change the way our secondary plays. And then we just trade another guy who's just eating up salary cap and never going to play for us because we have Jordan Davis and Fletcher Cox. We trade Javon Hargrave for L'Jarius Sneed. This is probably the trade we've most overpaid for, but I'm still fine with it. And now we can go through and just kind of fill some holes that we've created or holes that we still have with some veterans. Linval Joseph, Brandon Williams, Eddie Goldman, like these guys have elite strength, which is the thing that matters most at defensive tackle. So, you know, it's only going to cost us $1.95 million to sign Eddie Goldman, who's a star development player. Let's just grab him. We got rid of Hargrave. We'll replace him there. That's easy. Shaquem Griffin is a 91 speed linebacker. He absolutely belongs on our team and should probably play special teams for us. And look at this, Perry Nickerson, another 95 speed corner. We're just going to scoop and score. And we don't really need another receiver, but John Ross is just sitting here. We're going to take him. And why not bring him back to Philly? Jordan Matthews is an 86 speed tight end. He's back. And now that we've got a bunch of guys, let's take a look at this roster. It's already in such better shape and is so much more high upside. It's so much younger and faster. It's going to be a much better, we're in a better position to just succeed right off the bat. So we have not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, if you want to count Raygor, receivers that we can trust with the ball and we want to develop. We still have our quarterback who's amazing. We have a much faster running back. We have much faster tight ends. And our offensive line, I wish we could have done more with it, but right now it doesn't make sense to. And on the defensive side, we have our defensive line is largely the same. Eddie Goldman should actually be a backup to Jordan Davis. But then we got Darius Slay, Perry Nickerson, Javelin Guidry, and L'Jarius Sneed. Darius Slay is the slowest one, and he's the one we can most easily replace, and he's the one we're going to have to replace because he's old. And then we've got Guidry and Bradbury playing safety now. And then at linebacker, we have Reddick, Griffin, Dean, Owe, and Diablo, some absolute studs. This team is going to be in such good position to succeed. Here's 2 more tips to make yourself really spicy and get yourself in the best position for the next few years in your franchise. Number 1, new in Madden 22 is the franchise staff and specifically skill trees. These are actually game changers when it comes to developing your players. We've spent a lot of time and invested a lot of our resources into getting young, fast guys. We want to make sure we're upgrading them, and specifically on defense, which has been the focal point of this whole video. We want to make sure that we're giving them the best chances to succeed. So right now we have 60 staff points, which you can use and upgrade and earn throughout the season. We're going to use them on our head coach skill tree, specifically on XP for our defense. So you see this branch, the left branch does safeties, left ends, right ends, D tackles, left outside linebackers, right outside linebackers, middle linebackers, corners. You want to make sure you get all of these to make sure you're getting the maximum XP for your defensive players, and therefore upgrading them and investing in them heavily so that they become the players you want them to be. So I only had 60 points. I got 3 upgrades there, but keep doing this throughout the season and keep checking in and make sure you're hitting all your game day goals so you're getting the maximum staff points and upgrading your players, teams, and your dynasty. And then the final spicy upgrade is trying to trade for the first overall pick. Now, at the beginning of the season, you'll have no idea who it is, but you can try to make some guesses. If you're in an online draft, try to find the kid who's the worst at the game and try to trade for their first overall pick or their first round pick. It'll probably be pretty high. Or in an offline draft, try to trade for a team with like low speed, no superstar players, or a bad quarterback. So the Giants right now are projected to have the first overall pick, which makes all the sense in the world. They have a terrible roster. Let's try to trade for the first overall pick and see what we can do. If we create another hole on our roster by doing so, all that means is just we're going to have to fill another hole from free agency or another trade. So we just acquired what is projected to be the first overall pick from the Giants by trading Dallas Goedert, Kazir White, and our 14th overall pick. I don't know if that's our pick. I have to check. But essentially what we did here was get the first overall pick from a team without making them really all that much more improved. Like Dallas Goedert's a good player, but he's pretty slow and not going to make a huge impact. He's not going to change the game for the Giants, right? Kazir White is a slow linebacker. He's not going to change the game for the Giants. And the first overall pick isn't going to help them in any way. So they're still a bad team, and now we're invested in them doing poorly. And guess what? The Giants are also in our division, which means that if we beat them, which we plan to do, we'll do it twice and then actually lower their draft stock even more, which raises the value of their pick. So what have we accomplished in this video? 1, we cleared a little bit of cap space. Would love to have cleared more, but just the way Eagles are set up, we can't do that. Number 2, we got some high value, low overall, and very inexpensive players that are going to come in and play for us for a number of years. And then number 3, we got a little bit funky and got the first overall pick or projected first overall pick for not a lot of value. We have so much more upside with this team now, and we are ready to go into the season and dominate from year 1, get our young players some higher dev traits, and go for a Super Bowl year 1. Why can't this team win? They absolutely can. Make sure you follow, subscribe, comment, do all the things, and I'll see you guys in the next one.